The siren was faint at first, a long wail from the highway outside the industrial district. It faded as it passed, swallowed by the steady thrum of machines inside the plant. To everyone else, it was background noise. To Mara Connors, it sounded like a warning she was the only one hearing. She adjusted her glasses and stared at the glowing numbers on her monitor. They didn't line up. Again. Line 7's waste logs were missing half their disposal record, the spreadsheet link replaced with an empty cell, and a lazy "See attached" that attached nothing. She scrolled once, twice. Same silence. Mara wasn't the type to throw things or curse at screens. 16 years in compliance had burned that out of her. Instead, she opened the red notebook that lived on her desk. Ink scrawled neat and sharp, 9:42 a.m. Line 7 solvent disposal missing. Flagged risk. Awaiting response. She underlined awaiting twice. Across the aisle, a group of interns clustered around a MacBook, laughing about some new dashboard with pastel gradients and sliding toggles. Mara watched them for one detached second. They were kids playing with crayons while the walls smoldered. She capped her pen and turned back to the numbers. The office around her buzzed under the fluorescent lights. Beige cubicles stretched like a graveyard of forgotten ambition. Her mug, chipped, peeling with the words "51 Compliance Queen," sat beside the same peppermint tea she'd reheated 4 times already. She sipped it anyway. She could have let it slide. Pretend the error didn't exist. Sign the file, move on. That's what Josh Langley wanted, the new VP with his polished grin and shark eyes. To him, rules were inefficiencies. Oversight was obstruction, and risk was just an opportunity mismanaged. He wore those lines like cufflinks. But numbers didn't lie, and this one stank. Mara clicked, flag for review, and typed an email to Josh. Subject: missing solvent records, line 7. Could trigger audit if uncorrected. Please advise. She hovered a second, then hit send. The whoosh of the outbox felt louder than it should have. She leaned back, rubbing the bridge of her nose. The plant's smokestacks loomed beyond the small window by her desk. She watched a hawk spiral in the haze, circling the towers as if it knew something was rotting beneath them. Her phone buzzed. Calendar reminder. Quarterly EPA filing. Friday, 3 p.m. No extensions. No extensions. No mercy. She closed her laptop at 500 sharp. Not out of discipline, but out of principle. They didn't value the fires she put out after hours, so she stopped putting them out for free. She packed her bag, slipped the red notebook inside, and walked toward the parking lot. The siren rose again, closer this time, echoing off the steel walls. Mara paused by her Corolla, hand on the door handle. Eyes still on the stacks. The hawk had vanished. The smoke lingered. She had the gut, deep certainty of someone who knew storms didn't arrive all at once. They crept in, quiet at first. This was the first crack of thunder. The next morning, Mara arrived early, hoping the silence of an empty office might make the numbers less damning. It didn't. Line 7 was still wrong, and Josh still hadn't replied. Her inbox offered the usual distractions: a calendar invite for Spirit Week kickoff, a mandatory T-shirt day, a company-wide memo about values alignment, and 3 new emails from HR reminding everyone to RSVP for Wine Wednesday. Nothing from Josh. Nothing about the flagged solvent logs. Mara set her jaw. She typed again, following up: solvent disposal records remain incomplete. Filing due Friday. Needs resolution. High importance. She tagged it with the red exclamation mark, knowing it would be ignored. By 900, the office had filled with the background chatter of keyboards, coffee machines, and forced cheerfulness. Across the hall, Kelly from HR paraded through in a bright blazer, perfume cutting sharp through the recycled air. She smiled too widely at every cubicle, stopping to compliment someone's positive energy, as though it were a KPI. When her eyes landed on Mara, she tilted her head, softening her tone like she was speaking to a fragile child. Morning, Mara. How's our compliance superstar doing? Amara gave the kind of nod that wasn't an answer. Kelly lingered a second longer, waiting for warmth that wasn't coming, then pivoted away with her sing-song voice already aimed at the next desk. Mara's hands tightened around her mug. 16 years of clean filings. Federal audits passed without a crack, entire shutdowns prevented. But what people noticed was her silence in the break room, her absence from Wine Wednesday, her refusal to plaster a fake grin on Spirit days. She didn't fit. Her phone buzzed. A voicemail notification. She frowned, pressed play. Josh's voice. Casual, dismissive. Got your email. Don't worry about line 7. Ops is streamlining the logs. Some formatting got dropped. Nothing to panic about. Keep focused on the bigger picture. She stopped the message, replayed the last line, nothing to panic about. Her stomach nodded. Formatting errors didn't scrub change logs. Formatting errors didn't rewrite date fields. Someone had tampered with the record. Sloppy, but deliberate. She opened her red notebook, wrote 10:40 m. VP dismissive. Suspect intentional omission. Risk escalates. Her pen dug so hard into the page the ink bled through. At lunch, Mara sat alone, stirring lukewarm soup in the cafeteria while the interns laughed 2 tables over about some compliance meme on Slack. She caught snippets. Red tape. Government paranoia. Mara's obsession. They laughed like she was already gone. She didn't flinch. She just closed her container, stood, and walked out. On her way back to her desk, she passed the glass HR office. Kelly was inside, speaking to someone on video call, her voice lowered but animated. Mara caught only 3 words: alignment, transition, and her own name. The air felt heavier after that, like a storm cloud gathering just beyond the fluorescent lights. Back at her desk, Mara opened the compliance portal one last time. Line 7 pulsed on her screen like an open wound. Her reflection stared back at her from the monitor, eyes ringed with fatigue, mouth pressed thin. She whispered to herself, barely audible over the hum of machines outside. They think it's just paperwork. They don't know what's coming. And she was right. The storm wasn't creeping anymore. It was already at the door. The email arrived at 8:07 a.m. Subject line cheerful enough to make her stomach turns. Let's catch up, Zane. No calendar entry, no context. Just an invite to a quick sync. In HR conference room B, Mara sat frozen for half a beat. She'd been through enough restructurings to recognize the pattern. Vague subject lines, sudden urgency, the absence of her manager's name anywhere. She slipped her red notebook into her bag, though she knew she wouldn't be allowed to keep it open in that room. The conference room smelled like disinfectant and spearmint gum. Kelly waited at the far end of the table, fuchsia blazer practically glowing under the overhead light. Her smile was wide enough to be rehearsed. Mara! Thanks for being flexible, Kelly chirped, gesturing to the chair across from her. Mara didn't sit. Kelly's smile twitched but held. We're so excited about some changes we're making. A realignment with our vision for 2026, more synergy, more culture fit. And, well, after thoughtful conversations with leadership, it's been decided your role no longer aligns with that future. The words fell like an executioner's blade wrapped in glitter. Mara blinked once. I'm fired. Kelly laughed lightly, too quickly. Oh no, not fired. This is a transition opportunity. We're offering a generous package and even a career coach. Her name is Janelle. The door opened. 2 security contractors stepped inside. Polo shirts tucked too tight, plastic bin in hand. One chewed gum. Kelly's voice pitched higher, just a formality. They'll walk you back to gather your things. The silence stretched. Mara let it. Then, softly, okay. A no protest, no scene, just a nod, and she walked out. The corridors hummed with whispers. A few coworkers peeked up, startled. Susan from accounting opened her mouth, then closed it again. Mara collected her aloe plant, her mug, her red notebook. The rest stayed. At her car, the sun was blinding. Her phone buzzed with the official notice. Termination protocol confirmed. Credentials revoked. She powered it off, not airplane mode. Off. Then, from her bag, she pulled a leather folder. Thick, snapped shut, inside it thumb drives. Printed schedules of EPA deadlines, sworn affidavits, and a trail of discrepancies stretching back years. She tapped the folder with one fingernail. Steady as a metronome, she had prepared for this. Labeled the folder months ago in black Sharpie, for when they get stupid. A hawk wheeled above the smokestacks, circling wider, higher. Mara slid the key into the ignition, whispered again, okay, and drove away without looking back. By the time she reached her driveway, the first cracks were already spreading. Emails unanswered, alerts blinking red, a system built on her silence now screaming in her absence. The storm had arrived, and she didn't need to lift a finger. The plant looked normal on the outside. Trucks rumbled through the loading bays, forklifts beeped, and production lines hummed like any other day. But inside, the silence had teeth. At 10:16 a.m., a red banner flickered across the compliance dashboard. Certification pending, 24 hours. Only one person had ever known how to clear that alert. She was gone. Neil, the new analyst, stared at it too long. He chewed his lip until it bled, then carried his laptop to his manager's cubicle. There's something wrong with the dashboard. Ree barely looked up from his phone. Send it to Josh. I did. Twice. Then stop worrying. It's probably just one of those forms Mara obsessed over. Not critical. But it was. Across the floor, Gloria, the assistant plant manager, noticed the same flashing alert on her backup login. She picked up the phone. Josh, who's signing off this quarter. A pause, then Josh's easy chuckle. Relax. Those filings are mostly paperwork. Someone will click the button. Registration takes 72 hours, minimum. Deadline's tomorrow. You're overthinking it. Gloria hung up without arguing. Then, quietly, she forwarded the alert to her personal email. Just in case. By mid-afternoon, the first whispers spread the EPA agent was in the lobby. No appointment, no smile. Badge already in hand. Ray Monroe. Region 5, he said flatly. Need to see your certifying officer. But there wasn't one. Not anymore. While panic bled through the hallways, Mara sat in her backyard in a plastic lawn chair, a glass of cheap Merlot in hand. Her red folder lay open on the table beside her, each document neatly clipped and color-coded. She wasn't celebrating. She wasn't anxious. She was still, coiled. Patient, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She let it roll to voicemail. 10 minutes later, it buzzed again. Local area code this time. She muted it, took another sip. By evening, she had 4 missed calls, 2 frantic texts, one from Ree. Hi Mara. Hope you're well. Quick question. Do you remember the login creds for the EPA portal? She flipped her phone face down. The storm was in full swing now. Legal was scrambling. HR was pacing. Ops was in denial. Every department was pointing fingers at every other department, and somewhere, Josh Langley had gone conveniently. Out of office. For years, Mara had been the extinguisher. Quiet, diligent, invisible. She'd smothered sparks before they caught flame. She'd saved them from collapse twice without thanks. Not this time. This time, she had let the match burn. And tomorrow, when the fines hit, every hour would cost them $50,000. She swirled the last of her wine, eyes on the hawk circling above her neighbor's fence. Then she whispered, almost like a prayer, let it burn. The boardroom smelled of panic masked by cologne. 12 directors sat in silence, their faces pale against the mahogany table. At the far end, Dean Lockwood, CEO, corporate optimist in chief, drummed his fingers on a packet he didn't want to open. Across from him stood Ray Monroe, the EP agent. His black windbreaker hung heavy, badge glinting under the fluorescence. He spoke without raising his voice. You failed to designate a certifying officer. Your plant is out of compliance. As of this morning, fines are accruing at $50,000 per hour, and no one breathed. Dean finally cracked his packet, pages trembling in his hands. $50,000 an hour. His voice cracked. Ray didn't blink. That's the rate until you produce a legally authorized signature. You had one. You fired her. The words fell like stone into water. Everyone's eyes darted to the empty chair at the table's end. The one reserved for VP, compliance, empty, silent, condemning. Dean turned to his executives. Fix it now. But no one moved. Legal cleared their throat, pale as paper. We can't. The system's locked to her credentials. Physical token authentication. Kelly from HR blurted. She wasn't a culture fit. Enough. Dean's voice shook, but the steel was back. Get her on the phone. Across town, Mara sat in her guest room, blinds half drawn. The red folder lay open, her laptop glowing faintly. Her phone buzzed with the direct line from headquarters. She let it ring once, twice, before answering. Mara speaking. The voice on the other end was unfamiliar. She realized with a jolt it was Dean himself. I just walked out of a meeting with a federal agent. He says you're the only person who can keep this company operational. Is that true? Mara didn't flinch. You removed the only certifying officer authorized to submit filings. You ignored flagged discrepancies. And you terminated me without transition. Silence stretched so thin it hummed. Dean exhaled, brittle. We're facing millions in fines. Contracts on the line. I'd like to discuss bringing you back in. temporarily, to stabilize things. Her eyes dropped to the sticky note taped to her folder. 3 words in thick Sharpie: indemnity, authority, transparency. "I'm not coming back as your employee," she said quietly. "I'll return on terms of my own. Full legal indemnity, triple salary, direct authority over compliance and risk." And every one of Langley's approvals flagged for audit. Dean's breath caught. Triple. This is not negotiation. Mara's voice was level, calm, lethal. It's survival. Decide if you want the plant open tomorrow morning. On the other end, only silence. Then, finally, send your terms to legal. I'll sign them tonight. Amara ended the call without goodbye. She closed her notebook, slid the folder shut, and allowed herself the faintest smile, not of triumph but inevitability. Outside, the hawk screamed once, sharp against the gray sky. Tomorrow. She would walk back through those doors, but not as the woman they fired, as the woman they now feared. The next morning, security didn't stop her. They didn't even look her in the eye. Mara's heels echoed against the polished concrete as she crossed the lobby, past the receptionist who once handed her a cardboard box for her belongings. Now the woman looked down, knitting needles paused midair. She didn't pause either. She didn't nod, didn't smile. She walked straight through, carrying only her bag and the small, steel key that held their future. The elevator rose slowly, each floor a reminder of the climb she had made invisible for 16 years. When the doors opened, the executive suite was already in disarray, blinds drawn, hushed voices, the stale tang of panic clinging to the air. Her new office door was open. The plaque had already been mounted: Mara Connors, Chief Risk Officer. No interim. Permanent. She sat. Her desk was spotless except for a single note in legal's careful script: welcome. Let us know when you're ready. Mara inserted the key. The dashboard sprang alive, blood red across the screen. 1 box Blink EPS certification pending. She clicked. Uploaded her flagged report, attached her original warning, and marked the discrepancy as intentional omission suspected. Then she signed her name. The red turned green. The plant roared on outside, machines alive again, fines halted. Relief rippled through the building like oxygen returning to lungs. But Mara didn't smile. She wasn't here for relief. She opened the ethics portal, drafted a new report pattern of negligent oversight. J. Langley. 73 approvals flagged. Each one attached, timestamped undeniable. She copied the federal agent's email at the bottom, hit submit, and leaned back. No applause. No speeches. Just order restored with a keystroke. Hours later, the board gathered again, their voices lower now, reverent even. Mara stood at the head of the table, remote in hand, slides behind her altered logs, scrubbed dates, ignored warnings. The evidence was irrefutable, her tone surgical. When the agent spoke, had this report reached us uncorrected, we'd have arrived with warrants, not questions. The directors shifted in their seats like schoolchildren caught cheating. Dean Lockwood, pale, met her eyes. What do you recommend? Mara's voice didn't rise. Immediate termination of Langley. Audit HR for failures. All compliance now reports directly to risk and legal. No one argued. No one dared. The meeting adjourned. She walked out first. By dusk, the halls were quieter. Kelly was boxing her desk, Langley's nameplate already removed. Mara passed them both without a glance. Outside her office window, trucks lined up at the loading bays, the plant moving again, oblivious to how close it had come to ruin. She stood there a long time, hand on the glass, watching the horizon bleed into dark. For years, she had carried their weight in silence. Smothered sparks, patched cracks, saved them from themselves. And for years they had called it paperwork. Now the silence belonged to her. Not relief, not revenge. Something steadier, the silence of power reclaimed.